Right, it's a very good morning to you all. Welcome to the Citizens Coalition for Change press briefing to discuss the significance and outcome of the by-election that took place on Saturday, the 26th of March. Now, before we get into it, let me just apologize for the late start. I'm now going to defer proceedings to our change champion-in-chief and the person who we say is the president in waiting of our great republic, Zimbabwe, President Nelson Chamisa.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Just to take this opportunity to thank Mahere for the introductory remarks. We are excited. We are happy. You are aware that we've just completed our very important election, the by-election over the weekend, an election that was called for on account of the recalls that were made to certain of the members and also occasioned by deaths in the House of Assembly. You saw that the election came at a time when we were still very, very young. We are only 2 months old, the yellow baby. But guess what? Fit. A party formed in 1963. Another one formed in 1999. And what we have now is 19 seats out of the contested 28. A resounding victory. An emphatic and landslide show by the citizens of Zimbabwe. We want to thank all the citizens who have shown us that from nothing, we are now at number 19. Had it not been for rigging and other shenanigans that we saw, particularly in the countryside, would be talking of almost 26 out of 28. But tell you what, the citizens are very clear. They've made a bold statement, and that statement is that they believe in the CCC, the Citizen Coalition for Change. There is a new kid on the block. It's a new game. This is our first victory, our first election, and we've done so well. I've heard some people saying that, no, you retained your seats. We had no seats. We're on zero. We are starting afresh. ZANU-PF and Mr. Mnangagwa took the seats we had in 2018 and gave them to MDC Alliance. MDC Alliance did not win any seat. ZANU-PF, I'm not so sure if they won anything. But what we know is that we are now on number 19. And we are on this march to a 2/3 majority in Parliament come 2023. Citizens have done well. And we thank a lot of people who worked from no resource, from nothing, but the citizens. Citizens, we want to thank you. You did it. We have done it countrywide. We are now standing on the municipal elections, over 75 councillors out of the 120 that were contested for. That's not a mean achievement. We've done very well, and we're excited. Against all odds, you know that we had a lot of challenges. There was violence. We even lost one of our members, Boneni Ngwe. Some of our supporters were beaten. Matsibaba is a case in point, arrested. And many others were injured in Harare, in Kwekwe, and in the various parts of our country. One of our candidates in Mashonaland and Central, their homestead destroyed. We had problems with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission around the issue of the voters' roll. We still have those problems. Yes, we have had a landslide, but that does not move away from the fact that the elections in this country need fundamental reforms around the voters' roll, the credibility of the voters' roll, around the issues of making sure that results are managed in a better way. Polling stations are not subjected to the violence, intimidation that we have seen. ZANU-PF people do not believe. They do not believe. That's why they are abusing our traditional leaders. Where the case in Mtasa and other rural areas, on the farming areas, people are told that if you exercise your right to vote, you are inviting hazard, risk, and loss of life. That's not what the liberation struggle was for. It was one man, one woman, one vote. And that is what we want to see. People must be allowed and be permitted to vote for a part of their choice. If that happens, we're going to have a 100% victory. Because citizens are ready for change. Citizens are ready for victory. And I can tell you that what we have just done is a teaser, an introduction, and putting the nation and the world on notice that CCC is the next government. There is nothing that will stop us from forming the next government. Yes, challenges are there. ZEC still has to reform. Electoral reforms have to be implemented, and we have said those reforms have to be put in place. That's why we have written to SADC and asking SADC to help us, and also to have a political dialogue within the country around the reforms that we want to see instituted and put in place. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, thank you for covering the elections, and thank you for doing a fantastic job. We really appreciate you. We want to thank you for what you did, and we continue to count on you for covering these elections. Going forward, we are pushing for electoral reforms. The journey has begun. The march to 2023 has begun. We are on number 19. We want to get a 2/3 majority. We are on 0 in terms of the actual vote on the presidential election. But we know that the presidential candidate we are going to have at 2.6 million. So we count on that 2.6 million going forward, and want to make sure that we have a 6 million mark vote in the next election. Zimbabweans, you can do it. Register to vote. Those who didn't vote in the by-election, we understand you. You said you wanted a general election that will change your lives and that will change your situation and change the government. This is the opportunity. Do it. Register to vote. We want to thank you. God bless you. And we thank God for the journey, because on our own, we could not do it. But because God is in it, the citizens are in it, victory is certain. And we'll win Zimbabwe for change in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. So before the president goes, we're going to take a few questions. As usual, please identify yourself and the media house you come from, and then ask one question so that we can take as many as possible. Thank you. You can just indicate with a show of hands. Yes, Columbus.
Mr. Chamisa, what lesson or what lesson did you learn from this by-election?
Well, ultimately, citizens are the final authority. Citizens are the final court of appeal. This was a correction of the mistakes made by various organs of the state, conniving against us. You know what happened in Parliament, the illegal recalls. You know what happened with other political parties, conniving with ZANU-PF to try and decimate and destroy the People's Project. But the citizens are ultimately the umpires. And they've said enough is enough on the mistakes by Mr. Mnangagwa and the sidekick. Enough is enough on the mistakes by the courts. And the final court of all courts is the will of the people. And the people have expressed themselves. They've said what we want is the face of change. Citizens know their leaders. Citizens know what they want and who they want. And they've made an emphatic statement, even in the rural areas. Forget about those huge figures. ZANU-PF is not capable of being voted for. All those figures are a fiction. And we have to deal with that, because there are also gaps we need to deal with around how we are observing elections, particularly in the countryside. And also the issue of the traditional leaders and their roles in elections. Those are issues we are dealing with, particularly in terms of the countryside. But this whole lie that the countryside belongs to ZANU-PF is a hoax. It's a fallacy. We are very strong in the rural areas. That's why people are intimidated. No majority party intimidates its own supporters. There is no violence that is used by strong people. Weak people resort to violence. That's why ZANU's instrument of choice in dealing with the electorate and citizens is violence, because they are not supported, particularly in the countryside. Look at what they did in Binga. bicycles or balls. Yes, there's nothing wrong in distributing food. But people are not only carrying stomachs during election time. Remember them all the time. Don't go to them during the by-election. Balls are not only necessary during elections. They need water all the time. That's why we are saying enough is enough. And with all that, all the things they did in St. Mary's and all the constituencies, they did not make it.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
If I can secure SABC News, I want clarity from you, Mr. Chamisa. When you say that you have issues with ZEC and you have engaged ZEC,